Welcome everyone to Beat the Game and our first video on Beyond the Precon, a series that will explore the heroes as they come in their pre-constructed aspect. We're going to look at their strengths, their weaknesses, how to change and modify these decks using only the cards available in that hero kit that you would buy or in the core box. Now, for the first 5 heroes, it's kind of going to be a little bit similar. So we're really going to be focusing on like what makes that character special, what makes that character different from all the others in the core box. And you'll see there's a lot of differences between the 5 core heroes. Now, that being said, let's take a look at our first guy, our first iconic character. Oh yes, and I did forget, we're also going to talk about what aspect that I believe feels most thematic and what hero packs you can look into to increase that character's potential within that aspect. All right, so first thing first, let's talk about Peter Parker Spider-Man. Now, a couple of things that it is very cool to know about Peter Parker Spider-Man, one of the most iconic characters in the Marvel Universe. In the game here, he is represented with the justice aspect. Personally, I think he would have been more suited for protection or leadership, but that's just me being more thematic to the game. But that's just me, and that's what we'll talk about that in a second. But he does come in the justice aspect, which is pretty good because Peter Parker, Spider-Man's biggest weakness in his kit, his hero kit, is threat removal. So I think that's why it's still a good pairing with the justice aspect in the pre-constructed deck. Now, that being said, let's take a look real quick at what Peter Parker Spider-Man can do. Now, Peter Parker is a genius. He has a hand size of 6, and he also generates a mental resource because he's super smart. At the beginning of the round, or whenever you have an action to generate a mental resource for a card. One thing to know is if you don't spend that mental resource, it does not carry over when you flip to Spider-Man. All right. Next thing about Spider-Man, when he does flip, he has this cool ability. You can see that how his strengths lie. He's got 1 thwart, which is very weak. He's got 2 attack, which is okay, but he's got 3 defense. So, which means, and which leans into his high defensive potential, which is very, very cool. Now, a lot of people don't like protection and defending with characters because they're like, well, if I defend, then I can't attack. Which I agree, it does make sense. If I'm only preventing damage, how am I winning? And we're going to go into that. But Spider-Man is one of these unique characters that, because he has a high defense, you should definitely lead into this high defense potential when you start playing the first couple rounds of a game, until you set up some damage cards, what we'll talk about. All right. Also, he has this really cool ability that when he gets attacked by the villain, and that's when the villain attacks you, okay? You get to draw your spider sense, and you get to draw a card. Now, just to be clear, if the villain attacks somebody else and you're playing in multiplayer and you decide to defend for that player, this will not trigger your spider sense. Just a couple of little rules here just to make sure that you guys understand. Now, one of the unique cards in his kit is Aunt May. This is super good because it allows you, once you have this card on the table, it allows you to use Spider-Man's health as a resource. What does that mean? So you can now start taking hits. You can take a hit of 3 or 4, and then the villain attacks you again, and you take another 3 or 4, and then you're all battered and bruised. And then you can go to Alter Ego. You have that free resource. You can say, Aunt May, can you give me some milk and cookies? I don't feel good. And then she's going to heal you for 4. And then at the start of the next turn, after the villain phase, she can heal you for another 4, which means she can heal 80% of your health total, which is fantabulous. So with Spider-Man, you can be living on the edge once Aunt May is there. Trust me, you never want to use Spider-Man's 3 recovery unless you don't have Aunt May. So Aunt May is definitely a very fun, unique card that gets to heal you. It is one of the most powerful cards in the game just for that. Now, I talk a lot about Spider-Man's evasion. Now, one of the cool thing about Spider-Man's evasion is he's got these 2 backflips that help you do that. So, and you can wait because the villain, when he initiates an attack, you draw a card. You will get to see the boost card. So if it's a boost, the boost card is the little Y's on the cards. So if it says, if it's a boost of 1 or 2, then you'd be like, okay, the villain's attacking me for a base of 2 plus 2. All right, I don't want to take 4 damage. This is what I don't have my Aunt May yet. I'm going to backflip out of that. Great. All right, so that is one of these. This is unique to him. So it's a way to cancel all incoming damage. I highly recommend that for the first attack of the villain, you use your defense. And then if he attacks you again, because let's say it's Rhino or Claw, some of these attacks can stun you. So having this to backflip out of it, if it deals damage to you, you take no damage. So this is way, way, way better. Spider-Man also has his Spider Sense. All right, again, super amazing card. Do not shy to keep one in hand. This is one of the only cards I will say to keep in your hand. Okay, you don't need to keep both, but I definitely recommend keeping one in your hand when you see it. All right, so if you spent one as a resource and you haven't seen the dreaded Shadows of the Past, which is that treachery card, I highly recommend that you hold on to one of this. Of course, his enhanced Spider Sense can only be played while you are in hero form, so just remember that. All right, then he's got a couple of resource generators, which is very, very cool. Now, this is where his biggest weakness lies. It is the Spider Tracers. Now, this is his threat removal, and he can remove 3 threat after he defeats an enemy. So this is probably the least efficient way to remove threat. It's conditional on having a minion in play and defeating that minion. So it's 2 conditions to be able to remove 3 threat. So I'm not saying this is a bad card. If you do have a minion that has 1 or 2 health, then you could definitely put that on. And it's always good that you can kill that minion at one point and then remove 3 threat, which is really good. But it's very, very conditional. So this is a card I wouldn't say to hold on to desperately. All right. Then we have our high damage cards. We have our swinging web kicks. And he has 3 copies of this. So that means in his entire kit, he has 24 damage potential with events. So this is very good because 24 damage is basically you can kill a boss if you attack him with 1 or 2 of these and then a 3rd one when you flip the boss. So there's ways to kill a villain basically just with these 3 cards. Now, sometimes that what's going to happen is you're going to get 2 of these in your opening hand and you're like, oh man, am I going to play this? What should I play? And this is going to be decisions that are up to you. Are you looking to play the quick game or are you looking to play a little bit more conservative and maybe do a web kick, but play a web shooter or play something else, play your Aunt May, and then just try to figure out like how can I build up a little bit of a board state before swinging in all in on damage, which again is a valid strategy that you can do. So this is where the decision parts come in, and then we're going to explore that a little bit further down the line. But yeah, so he's got 24 damage potential here. Now, one of the the most thematic cards, but also probably the worst card in his kit for solo play. And this is very important. It's for solo play. I know Webbed Up feels super thematic. Oh man, I'm going to stick it to the boss. He's going to get stuck and then he's going to not be able to move. And this is exactly what this card does. You can only do this in hero form. You attach to an enemy and once per enemy. The fun thing is you can do it on a minion, which I highly recommend doing it on minions if you're going to do it on anything. Because if you're going to do it on the boss, it's going to be counterintuitive to triggering your Spider Sense and drawing extra cards. So if the villain doesn't attack you, you don't get to draw. This prevents that next attack and then it stuns him. So this kind of takes away 2 possible card draws from your deck. So again, it's going to slow you down from going through your deck as fast as possible. So for me, webbed up, if you're playing in a 2 or 3 player in a 3-player game, then I would say this is a great card to play. Especially if you're going to be going down. So you play this card on the villain, and then this is, okay guys, this is the turn I'm going to alter ego. Then you're like, okay guys, you're going to save your buddies from 2 attacks. But if you're staying in hero form, I wouldn't recommend playing this card. And then finally, one of the best allies in the game, Black Cat. The reason why she's one of the best allies is because she doesn't take any consequential damage. That means she just hits and hits every round. So as soon as she gets on the table, you can use her and then to use her effect and just keep attacking for one every turn. So that is very good. So that is it, just going over his kit, what works, what doesn't for Spider-Man's strength and weakness. Now, the pre-constructed deck, I'm not going to go too much into details because the yellow cards that they give you 2 powers of justice, 2 great responsibilities, 2 for justices, 2 interrogation room, 2 surveillance teams, 2 heroic intuitions, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones. Now, an easy way to make this yellow pool better, these yellow cards that they give you, is to remove a couple cards that are useless in solo play. So interrogation room and heroic intuition, giving you 2 copies of this. I understand why they do it, so they want to make sure that you get one. But this is definitely not. This is definitely a way that you can improve. It's max 1s per player, max 1 per player. If you're playing in solo, these are the first 2 cards I would say to get rid of. All right. The third one in the yellow cards that I would suggest to get rid of is a great responsibility. Although this card can save your butt in a pinch if you're in a hero form and the villain advances, odds are that you're playing Justice, you should have a good amount of threat control already on the board. And this, when any amount of threat will be placed on a scheme. Now, one thing to not forget is the mechanic Hinder would be able to, you'd be able to do this with Hinder. The problem is most of the side scheme come in with 2 per player or 3 per player, and that is not placed on the scheme. All right. So, but the Hinder mechanic, you can interrupt it with this, but not a threat arriving. So you can also cancel. Oh, the villain is putting 1 threat per turn. You can cancel that 1 threat with the great responsibility. Or the villain schemes and he's going to place 1 plus the boost. All right, he's scheming for 3. I'm going to great responsibility that. So that is a good card to have. But again, because Spider-Man can use his health as a resource when he has Aunt May, it's a good card, but it's not the best. All right, now easy suggestions. I'm going to suggest 2 yellow cards to add to your card pool. One is a third copy of Surveillance Team that comes with the PreCon, and a third copy of For Justice. Now, what is this going to do? So if you have 3 copies of For Justice, that means you can remove a total of 9 threat, possibly 12 threat, if you pay with a mental resource, which is very, very good. So this should help you stabilize the game and give you enough time to build a board and defeat the villain. The surveillance teams are great because sometimes you don't need 4 threat removal. You only need 1. So you can use those surveillance teams to just remove 1 whenever you need it. So that is why it's a build card. You don't have to use all 3 of the tokens. The fun thing about these is you use them optionally. So it's very, very efficient. All right, so that is for upgrades on the yellow cards and why. Now, the basic cards gives you 3 double resources. It gives you an emergency, a first aid, a haymaker, a helicarrier, Avengers Mansion, a tenacity, a Mockingbird, and a Nick Fury. Now, these are okay cards. One of the cards I would suggest to remove is an emergency. Emergency, it's when the villain schemes. So this is a very conditional card that only works when the villain wants to advance. The great thing is you can actually use this in alter ego, but Spider-Man most likely will not be in alter ego a lot. So this is a card that is easily able to be replaced. The next one I would suggest to remove is the Tenacity. The Tenacity, it is a hero action. You have to spend a physical resource and discard this card to ready your hero. Now, because Spider-Man wants to block a lot, this seems like a perfect card. It's okay. I know the art is super cool on it. I love the art on it, but Tenacity is great for some other heroes, but not too much for Spider-Man. Not especially in Justice. It's not where he needs to be. There's some more efficient cards that you can use just with the cards that we have in the PreCon. The other ones, again, Helicarrier, Avengers Mansion. This is a great card. I wouldn't suggest adding more of those. I've seen some people put 3 Avengers Mansions and 3 Helicarriers. Oh, I want to make sure that I get them. But then after that, they're just dead cards. So for me, I think it's not a good option to add. What is a good option to add, though, is more damage cards. So adding 2 Haymakers to your cards is going to be more efficient and is going to allow you to play into his defense mechanic without worrying too much about dealing damage. So you can defend a lot, and then you can use these attack events to attack and deal damage to the boss, which is where you want to go. I would definitely suggest Mockingbird. This is a card that is good to replace because you don't really want to stun the villain. But if there's a minion and you want to stun the minion, this is definitely what I would recommend playing. Because again, it goes against what you want to do. Nick Fury is really good. The final card I will suggest to add is a second First Aid. Now, the reason why I suggest that is because you have one of the best Justice allies in the game with Daredevil out of the PreCon. So Daredevil thwarts for 2 and deals a damage. So that is very good. That's double what you can do, and he does a damage, which is half what you can do. So very, very efficient Daredevil, but he can only activate 3 times. One of the common mistakes that new players make is they'll spend 4 resources for a character like Daredevil, use him once, and then put him in front of a boss to block an attack. That is definitely not the best way to do it. It is okay if you need it, but it's definitely not the best way to do it if you want to have a better success rate. Now, think about Daredevil. If you activate him 3 times on 3 turns, he removes 6 threat and deals 3 damage. Now, if you add a couple of First Aids, you can multiply that twice almost. So you can do it 7 times. So that's 14 threat and 7 damage over 7 turns. Now, most games won't last 7 turns, but again, you never know. Sometimes the game might go long. So adding an extra First Aid to go and heal Daredevil or heal yourself if you need to stay in hero form because you haven't been able to manage threat is definitely what I would recommend. So this is it for upgrading the PreCon. So this will give you a lot better control on threat, on damage, so you will have more versatility in your deck. Combine it with your hero cards, combine it with Black Cat that deals damage every turn, and your web kicks. You should be able to take out the villains on standard, no problem. Even Ultron and Claw. So this is for the PreCon. Now let's go beyond the PreCon, all right? But I don't want to talk about Justice because Spider-Man in Justice is definitely not my favorite way to play him. I really enjoy him in Protection, and let's go look at what we can do with him in Protection. All right, now let's go beyond the Justice aspect because I really feel Spider-Man's main aspect is Protection. It is definitely where he feels the most natural to me thematically. And again, if you're playing just with the core set, you have everything you need in the core set to be an effective Spider-Man. All right, so again, the core set comes with 2 Get Behind Me's, 2 Indomitables, 2 Armored Vests, 2 Counterpunches, 2 Med Teams, Luke Cage and Black Widow, and 2 Double Resources, and the same basic cards as the other one, the 3 Double Resources. First Aid, Haymaker, Helicarrier, Nick Fury, Mockingbird, Tenacity, and Emergency. Pretty much like the other thing, we're going to just upgrade this PreCon. And why? We're going to get rid of 1 Armored Vest. We don't need 2 in our deck. That is the only protection card that we will remove. Same thing for Emergency. Let's get rid of this guy. Let's get rid of Tenacity. Not that, again, Tenacity is not a bad card. It's just not as effective for what we're looking to do. All right, so now we replaced 3 cards. We need to add 3 cards. So one of the things we can add is the Counterpunch, because we are going to be defending a lot. So that is a 0 cost 2 damage card, which is very, very good. We're going to add another Indomitable to be able to have another way to ready for 1 instead of 4. And then finally, we're going to add another Haymaker. So this is going to be efficient because now we have we have more damage potential. And that is one of the things about protection that people used to complain about, is there's not enough damage. But if you think about, you have your 3 web kicks that are 8 damage apiece, so that's 24 damage. You have an extra 6 damage here from the Counterpunch for defending, that's 30 damage. And you have 2 Haymakers, that's 36 damage with events only. Then, if you consider guys like Luke Cage, who on his own can deal 10 damage and take an attack from the boss because he's tough, you have more than enough damage to take out a scenario. That's not counting Nick Fury. If you use Nick Fury to do 4 damage and then an extra 2 damage, that's an extra 6 damage. So your kit right now in protection, just like this, has enough to do what you want to do and deal some damage and defend to keep you healthy the entire game. So again, this is a very easy way to upgrade the defensive precon for protection. Now, this is going to be more for a multiplayer style of play, but I'm going to suggest some of the hero packs to increase Spider-Man in protection. So we're going to get rid of these. We're going to get rid of these. And then we're going to talk about Protection Spider-Man. All right. How does Protection Spider-Man work? Well, Protection Spider-Man in multiplayer is going to be what is going to be the most thematically fun. What does that mean? That means you're going to want to defend for other players, and then you get to ready and stuff like that. So some of the new expansions, there's a few of the new hero kits that are going to offer some extra possibilities for this. I think the best one that you should look for, or the #1 pick that I would suggest for a multiplayer defense strategy to be super thematic, would be Quicksilver. Because Quicksilver also comes in the protection aspect, but also has 3 really fun cards. The first one is Nerves of Steel, which is Nerves of Steel generates a lightning resource to play a defense event. But you're like, Steve, there's no defense events yet. But yes, so Quicksilver also comes with 2 really cool defense events. The first one is Sidestep. So when you would take any amount of damage, prevent 3 of that damage. If you paid with a lightning resource, deal a damage to an enemy. So that allows you to deal damage and prevent damage. So which is really, really cool. Now, this one cannot defend for somebody else. So you have to use your defense, and then you can prevent if you take more than 3 damage. But then the villain attacks you, you would draw a card, and then you can play Sidestep. Now, the other card that's introduced in Quicksilver's pack is also the Never Back Down. Now, this one, it gives +2 to your defense, so it'd bring you up to a 5 defense. And if you took no damage from that attack, you also get to stun the enemy. So the attacking enemy. So that is really cool because in a multiplayer game, now you don't need to exhaust to defend for the next player. You're going to stun the enemy. He's going to lose his activation, which means the other player will not get attacked. And that's going to save that. That's going to help the table a lot. All right, so these 3 cards, definitely. I got to stop saying definitely. I think we're going to do a drinking game. Every time I say that word, you guys take a shot of milk or water or something. Because I definitely say it way too much. All right, the second hero pack I recommend, and this is going to be a toss-up. If you play mostly solo, I'll suggest one thing. If you're playing mostly multiplayer, I'll suggest the other. Now, if you're going to be mostly playing solo, I would recommend the Guardians of the Galaxy box. The Guardians Most Wanted, because Groot comes in protection and has one of the best no damage cards in the game, which is hard to ignore. Hard to ignore is after your hero defends against an attack and takes no damage, remove a threat from the main scheme. This is huge for protection because one of the main issues that protection has is dealing with threat. And this is not limited to one. So if you have 3, you can have all 3 on the table and make a perfect defense and remove up to 3 threat from the main scheme. Now that is bonkers good. Now the reason why it's bonkers good because it gives you the time you need to control the main scheme. Now the only downside to this is if ever there's a crisis icon. But if you're playing in a solo game, you should be able to put a couple of cards in your deck. From what we've seen just with the hero pack, we can definitely deal with a crisis icon. All right. And then the other card is Dauntless, which says if your hero has 10 health or more, you get Retaliate. So not only do you blocking the attacks, as long as your health is high, you get to deal extra damage just for defending, which is really, really cool. All right. Now, if you're playing more in a multiplayer's aspect, Doctor Strange has 2 of the really cool cards for this strategy. The first one being Desperate Defense. It says when your hero defends against an attack, it gets +2 defense. If you take no damage, ready your hero. So that means you can defend for your ally, the other person, play Desperate Defense, ready, and then defend again. And then if you have the Indomitables that we have in the core set, you get to ready again. So basically you're protecting everyone, readying, defending, readying. Very, very cool. Not only that, you're not only spending resource because you have a resource generator that pays for these events. Very, very cool. And then again, in the no damage strategy, one of the fun cards is Unflappable. And it says after you defend and you take no damage, you get to exhaust Unflappable to draw another card. So the villain attacks you, you get to draw a card. You make a perfect block, you get to draw a card. You get to deal damage. You get to remove threat. So this is all coming together really, really well to complete the necessary strategy to be able to be effective in protection. Again, really focusing on what the hero card, the aspect was lacking, but it does conditional to a perfect defense. Now that being said, your perfect defense doesn't always have to come from the boss. You know that you're going to get at least 2 of those guaranteed because you have the backflip. But you can also perfect defense a minion and get all these triggers as well. So that is something that you might want to consider as well when you're doing that kind of type. And then the third hero pack I would highly suggest is the Vision pack. The Vision pack comes with Flow Like Water, which is another super sweet upgrade that says play under the player's control, max 1 per player. Response, after you play a defense card, deal a damage to the attacking enemy. So now you're doing a defense, you're doing your backflip, you're taking no damage, you have full health, you remove, you deal a damage because you played the defense event, you remove threat, you draw cards, you deal more damage. This is just super complete. So on any given turn, you can deal 5, 6, 7 damage to the enemy without ever taking any points of damage, drawing cards, readying, and removing threat. That's all during the villain's turn, which is what I love the most about this character in protection. And then finally, to make sure you get that perfect defense, we have the Defiance card. Defiance card says when a boost card on an enemy would be turned face up, discard it instead. So if the villain has an attack value of 3, then you defend and you know he's not going to hit you. So you know you don't need to waste a you don't need to waste the backflip. You can just use Defiance and you know you're going to get a perfect defense, and then you can ready, or you can use your Desperate Defense or whatever other card that you can. So again, these are the extra cards that I really highly suggest for pushing this perfect defense and this protection strategy to the next level. Super fun, extremely thematic. Spider-Man is just very, very fun. Once you have Aunt May, even if you take some damage, you can protect everyone, take the damage yourself. At one point, flip down to Alter Ego, and then have Aunt May bake you some cookies, and then go back. If you want to get an extra pack, or if you're not sure, there's another cool one called the Electrostatic Armor, and this is a bonus card from the Hulk pack. But this is definitely an optional. It's just more damage after you defend. So that's why it kind of completes all the triumvirate of extra damage. So this for me are the sweet upgrades that we have available as of now, which is May 2022, and what is released as of today. All right. So the sinister, just up to the sinister motives. Okay. So we already saw that. What's her face there? Spider DR is going to have more protection cards. Maybe there's going to be some good cards for this strategy. Maybe not. We'll know when the time comes. But for now, these are the best cards to further increase the strategy of super defense. All right. Now let's take a look at the final one. I'm going to go into one last aspect. For him, I know I did two already. I'm going to talk about leadership because justice really doesn't feel like it's his aspect, but leadership is definitely the aspect that I would recommend as the second option for Spider-Man, because you've seen him being a team leader in the cartoons and stuff like that, and with the Web Warriors. So leadership thematically to me seems like Spider-Man's jam. So protection and leadership are my two favorite aspects for the core set Spider-Man. And let's take a look at what we can do with some leadership cards. So let's talk about the leadership precon. All right, so it comes with 2 powers of leadership, 2 inspireds, a Triskelion, 2 lead from the fronts, 2 get readies, 2 make the calls, the Vision, Hawkeye, and Maria Hill. All right, and then it comes also with the 3 doubles, the first aid, haymaker, and all the rest of the stuff that we already used to. All right, so in this precon, just the way it is now, it is pretty well rounded, but I'm gonna offer you a super cool deck that is very thematic. It says Peter Parker is too busy, Spider-Man has to stay home. So this is gonna be a deck that you can play versus Claw or versus Rhino in Alter Ego, and you stay in Alter Ego the entire game. What? How do you play this? Well, it's really, really simple. First thing, we're going to upgrade a couple of cards. We're going to get rid of the lead from the fronts because we're not going to be playing in hero form. We're not going to be in hero form. Again, you can choose that. I'm just giving you a suggestion here because it's kind of super thematic. We're going to get rid of the haymaker because we don't need that. And then we're going to get rid of Mockingbird because we don't need her. She doesn't help our cause. All right. And then we're going to get rid of, what's the other one we're getting rid of? Where is he? We're getting rid of, that's right. No, we're keeping the Inspire. Yeah, we're keeping the Inspire. We just need to get rid of one more card. Where is it? Which one did we want to get rid of? All right. So I just forgot to put the emergency back into the hero kit. All right. So the last card I was looking to get rid of was not this. Is I only have 4 to get rid of. So the things that you can only do in hero action. So what we're going to be adding is we're going to add 2 other emergencies. So that is 3 emergencies. So that means we can remove threat in Alter Ego. We can actually prevent the threat in Alter Ego, which is super fun and thematic. We're going to get another Make the Call, and we're going to get another Get Ready. So we're going to have 3 Make the Calls, 3 Get Readies. And we're always going to have a hand size of 7 cards. Now, what's super cool about this is there's a bunch of things that we can play in Alter Ego to make this fun. Black Cat can be played in Alter Ego. Our Spider Tracers can be played in Alter Ego. But that is it. So these are cards that are going to help deal damage. And these are going to remove threat. So we can also help with threat even if we stay in Alter Ego the whole game. Now what's cool is Nick Fury. We can always recur Nick Fury with the Make the Calls. We'll always have enough resources to play Nick Fury. And then we can just use Nick Fury to deal tons of damage We can get him ready 2 or 3 times. So he can come in, deal 4 damage, 6, 8 damage in a turn. You can even, if we have 3 get readies, we can do 10 damage with Nick Fury in a turn, which is very, very cool. Hawkeye and Vision are there also to deal extra damage, plus Black Cat, which is never going to go away, is going to go and is going to stay on the table. If you want to add an extra card, I would definitely recommend adding an extra first aid so you can keep Vision healthy, and Vision can remove 3 threat, or you can attack for 4 every turn. So this is just a slight way to play leadership and staying in alter ego, because you'll have your allies do most of the work. It doesn't feel super thematic to Spider-Man because you're not actually playing with Spider-Man. You're playing with Peter Parker. But this is a fun way to try and test yourself. If you inspire Black Cat, then she is going to thwart for 2 or attack for 2, and then she never dies. So that is one of the best things. The other character you want to inspire is Vision, because then he attacks for 3 or thwarts for 2. And if you spend a lightning, he thwarts for 4 or attacks for 5. So that is crazy. And then if you can use Nick Fury, Vision and the Get Readies to attack for 5, 10, 15 before he goes away. So that's why those first aids are really, really recommended for this. So, and then Hawkeye can just eliminate minions as they come into play with his 4 arrows. And then you can make the call back. You can make him back. Comes back with his arrows. You can use Maria Hill for drawing cards. And for thwart. So this is very, very efficient for a precon. You can most likely defeat any villain in standard form. Ultron might be a little tricky, but he's not going to be placing a lot of drones because he only places the drones when he attacks. So with the emergencies and things like that, you should be able to keep the threat low enough to be able to win the game. So that is my suggestion for this. Again, you're playing into the mechanics. You always have 7 resources in hand, or 7 cards to play with technically. If once you have your helicarrier and your Avengers Mansion, you technically have 9 resources to play with. So you're going to be playing all your things. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is so fun. And you'll be able to play in alter ego. Or if you don't want to play an alter ego, obviously you don't need to. One of the other deck constructions we can do is we can still lean into what we're doing with our characters, with this. But then I would remove all 3 of the emergencies, and then I would add 3 lead from the fronts, and I would keep the deck the same. So I know there's probably another lead from the front in my cards here. So if you want to do it in hero form as well, you go with the 3 lead from the fronts, and then you can do a lot of damage just with those cards. So then again, this is if you want to do a leadership Spider-Man build, just using the pre-constructed decks from the cards from the core set. You can have a really, really solid deck just with what you have with the precon. And this is what's amazing about this game. You know, yes, you can improve on it, and then it's just different plays, different styles of what you would like. I'm not going to go into what to buy for if you want to upgrade the leadership, again, because I'm going to go over that with one of the other characters. But this strategy, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is super solid. It's very, very, very solid, and it's something that your playgroup might be like, what? You're staying in alter ego the entire game? How is that good? And then once they see how much damage you can do and how much threat you can remove in alter ego, they might be like, oh, okay, I see where that's going. So guys, so this was my breakdown of the Spider-Man Beyond the Precon. I really hope this is going to help you look at the core set in a whole new light. Seeing that you have some really cool potential with the cards available. You have ways to play the game, and then differently with the characters. And again, this is just a couple of suggestions. I highly recommend if you want to go into further deck building and having more options. It's just the easiest strategy is pick out a theme of what you want to do. I want my Spider-Man to attack a lot, or I want my Spider-Man to defend a lot. I want to protect my allies. I want to protect my, like, I want to do this for my friends. I want to just choose a theme. And then once you have chosen your theme, then you kind of look at the cards that are available to you and how do they play into that scheme or into that intent of what you're looking at. And again, you'll see that the deck building options, they dwindle down because once you start focusing on what you want to do and what you can do, and you'll be amazed that every hero has tremendous potential to play the game in pretty much any way that you choose. So again, I really hope this video will be instructive and informative and will help you play the game. All right, guys, this is Steve signing off, and I'll catch you on the flip side. The next hero we'll review will be She-Hulk, and we'll talk about her. And I'm going to try to post a couple of gameplays using Spider-Man, probably with the protection and the leadership, which is, again, I believe my favorite aspects for this character. All right, so let's go with that. And then we'll see you on the flip side, guys. Hope this was informative. I keep repeating myself. Keep on playing Marvel Champions, guys. Play the game, beat the game. Ciao, ciao.